try to bring in this strategic focus where you try to understand about their motivations, what kind of problems have they solved, what kind of projects do they work with. And as a project manager, if you could share in your experiences as well, that counts in. So try to have this kind of discussions often with your cross-functional teams.
Hi, I'm Anna Anderson, CEO and founder of the Women in Project Management Network. I'm a project manager by profession, a career coach, a PMP trainer, and a LinkedIn Learning instructor. But more importantly, I'm someone who's been in your shoes. Not too long ago, I was filled with doubt, stepping out of my comfort zone and navigating rejection after rejection. It wasn't an easy journey, but through perseverance, hard work, and lessons learned, I finally found my yes. That moment changed everything, not just for me, but for the many people I've since had the privilege to help. I've seen how lives transform when you have the right tools, when you have the right support and encouragement to pursue those six-figure project management roles. On the Project Management Connect Show, here I share inspiring stories from project managers who've gone through aspiring to hire. I also bring in industry experts, recruiters, and hiring managers to show us how it's done. Together, we'll explore practical strategies and actionable tips to help you on your journey. So, whether you're just starting out, transitioning into project management, or looking to elevate your project management career, this podcast is for you. If project management feels like your calling, or if you're just exploring, it's time to dive in. So let's get started, fellow project manager. Your journey begins here.
So today we have with us Janani. Janani is an amazing person that I've met through networking, and she's here today to speak with us about leading without authority. But before we continue, Janani, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hey, hi, Anna. Thank you so much for having me here on your podcast. I am a group project manager from Singapore. And prior to doing project management, I have been a software QA engineer. I have also been a product manager. And now I work as a project management lead, leading lots of advertisement products for Rakuten.
Wow, you've done tons of things. You've done QA, you've done product management. Now you're a project management lead.
That's
with an amazing company leading a lot of things. And by that meaning also you're leading a lot of people. But tell us a little bit about what does it mean by leading without authority? Because a lot of us project managers, we are going to lead, and that's one of our skills. But what does it mean exactly?
Let's start with a background. See, certain times, right, leading or influencing comes with an authority, right? Authority is certain times associated with a kind of power or team structure. However, let's talk about the real scenario. You are a project manager. You do have a temporary team. Maybe the project team that you work on with project A will be different from project B. Now comes in, that is where the biggest challenge is. How do you influence this team? How do you influence your stakeholders that you do not have any formal power? You are not the official manager that people would trust on the decisions that you make, right? So it is all about building this kind of connections, building the kind of credibility that you have to have. That people start looking at you as a power, you as a person who makes correct decisions. And then automatically you see that you'd be leading even though you do not have the authority.
Yeah, that's actually a good way of explaining it, because a lot of the time we think, okay, now that we are leading, we are probably going to be managing them directly. But that's not exactly it. You are leading because you're the leader for that specific project. You have specific people who have expertise working on that specific project. But now you're leading to make sure that the project is successful at the end. Tell us a little bit about some of the exciting things that you have seen as a project lead leading without authority.
Well, I have seen myself building more connections. See, very crucial to project management is stakeholder management. You agree, right? So when you start building these kind of connections, you start building this rapport with your stakeholders. Next comes in the credibility factor. To me, that credibility is very important because people start trusting on your decisions. And Anna, let's get back again into reality where you're working on a project and suddenly you are stuck somewhere. Probably it's a kind of technical limitation where you will have to make this decision to your business that, yes, we wanted to go in this direction. Things are not working fine. But I do have 3 other solutions for you. Which one would you like to? So business automatically would have this inclination. Okay, she has done her homework and she is able to explain me the pros and cons behind each of the solution. So this is one such example, and they would take your recommendation as well. Okay, I like solution A and B, but Janani, what about you? What would you do if you were here? And I would say, I think I'll go ahead with solution B. This UI framework looks good. So business automatically starts trusting you. So this is the kind of rapport that I have built with the stakeholders in the past where my decisions have been regarded. That emotional quotient or critical decision making that is key to a project manager's success, that start kicking in here. That makes that higher importance.
And have you always been in situations where you're leading without authority?
Absolutely. So not just as a project manager, I would say that even when I was working as a product manager, this was very important for me where I could build this kind of credibility and I was able to lead without authority. Now let's go back into what is the root cause for all these things. It is problem solving, right? Project management at the heart is just problem solving. So when you have problems, you do have lots of solutions that you are exploring. And when you are trying to lead without authority, getting the right solution for your problem or going back to your stakeholders and understanding what is their problem, how is it impacting them? So you try to reach into the core of the problem. So you're spending in say 60 to 80% of your time at that point, understanding the problem well. What are their major pain points? And then looking at solving the problem. And that gives you a higher edge over others because you understood their problem well and you're trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
You're right. Have you ever faced any pushback with all these teams that you've worked with when it comes to leading without authority? Have you ever received any pushback?
Yes, definitely. And I think one of the reasons is each person or each team has a different problem or probably a different motive, right?
Yeah.
I face as a problem, Anna, maybe for you, it might look like a smaller problem and your problems or your vision is something different. So often we see that there are certain times of pushbacks. I think you're not prioritizing my problem. You're looking at that team's problem. So this kind of pushbacks happen. And I think for that, look at a collaboration. Bring all your stakeholders in the same room. Have this open discussion. I call this as an inclusive facilitation, Anna. I don't know if you agree with it. But make sure that every team who's working with you is able to speak about it. What is their problems? What are they going through? So when everyone in that room has an opportunity to speak, you're able to clearly identify everyone's perspectives. Okay, fine. I did not look at your perspective. That is where I was failing. So how could I look at a solution? So that's a good way of solving the pushbacks that you receive.
No, I love that because a lot of times people outside actually think as project managers, all we do is take notes and set up meetings. But you can see there's a lot of things that's in the background. We have to build trust with our teams. We have to collaborate. We have to communicate. We have to lead without authority. And not just with one team, multiple teams, especially if you're working on multiple projects. So it's just not just taking notes and sending out meeting minutes and setting up meetings. It's a lot more than that. So how do you go about establishing credibility with stakeholders and also team members when you don't have that formal authority? How do you go about it?
I would say a few things that you could do. First thing is clear, over clever communication. I keep talking about this very often and you'd agree as well, right? As project managers, I've seen that certain times there are people coming in and saying, I think we are doing fine. There is a delay. We are going to catch up. See, this is a clever way of saying, I didn't understand what was the delay. I didn't understand how are you going to catch up. People try to do this. That is where the other person stops, trusting you. I'll give you the best way of saying, yes, we have a milestone delay by one day. One of our engineers was sick. But the good news is that we do have a recovery plan. We should be able to get back into track by tomorrow. See, when you say this, people are able to relate to it. Okay, yes, I understand there was a delay, but you do have a recovery plan. So I think clear over clever communication is very important. Next thing, project management is all about risk management as well, right? So you will have to look at problems even before they crop up. So if you're able to have your risk register, and while you are talking to the stakeholders, show your genuine concerns about how I think that this issue could crop up during the project cycle, how it could impact us. Can we be prepared to accept it? Can we prepare to mitigate it? So that should be a good one. And next thing is data-backed decisions. I don't want, as you said, lots of us are going through this pressure where people think that you are a delegate of the sponsor, you are a task taker. We have to break that mindset, Anna. Best way to move forward is data-driven decisions, right? So when you are left with a problem, instead of just giving in a suggestion, I think that is where you lose your credibility. She is not sure about what she is talking. Rather say, guys, look at this data trends that I have. So and so, the daily user active count is going to be in this way, or this is what is trending, or this is what social media is speaking about a similar app. Why don't we head in this direction? That shows that you are looking at data instead of sentiments, and that gives you a super brownie point as a project manager. So I'd say, project managers, if you're looking at building credibility, it has to come through these kind of steps. You are looking at your communication checkpoints, you're looking at your database decisions, you're looking at your risk management strategies. So people know that you are looking at the project from all of the corners, not from just one person's perspective.
No, you're right. I love that you broke it down from communication to using data-driven, because data will help you drive those decisions, and also utilizing or understanding what your risks within your project.
Right.
A lot of people just think, especially sometimes people think, oh, risk is only identified once. It's something that will happen throughout the project because things will prop up. How you make sure that that's, you're mitigating that will help as well. So thank you for that.
And Anna, sorry to cut you. See, lots of people think that for risk as well, mitigation is the only solution, right?
No, yeah.
You often see the situations where we have to forcibly accept the risk. We have to be prepared. There's no other way. Transfer it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Certain times people forget those points, that risk is not just about mitigation, but preparing what you need to accept or what you need to avoid or what you need to transfer. I call it as the MATA principle. That's why. MATA,
yeah. You're right. I was just actually teaching this the other day. We're talking about risk, and we're talking about different ways of responding to risk. And one of the ways is mitigating. That's the most common one because, the risk register, you have a mitigation plan. But I feel like we should call it a response plan, because the response will be like, are we mitigating? Are we avoiding it? Are we transferring it? Or are we just going to accept it as is and then figure out next steps from that? So that's good. Maybe that's another topic we should talk about.
Definitely. Yeah.
In the future. But so how do you go about balancing being assertive and maintaining that positive relationship? Because majority of the time they're like, a PM, you have to be assertive, but not bossy, but assertive.
That's
How do you go about being assertive and maintaining that positive relationship in a project setting while leading without authority? Because, some people are like, just go ahead and tell it.
Well, I would say, yes, that is very crucial. You took up a very important point of, there is a right balance between being a leader and being the manager at this point, right? We are not looking at being the manager, giving the team the guidelines, like, go ahead with this step or going ahead with that step. I would say, rather try to understand what are your team's strengths in this case. So when you work with a development team, let's talk about an IT project management. Spend some time to understand about your team's strengths and weaknesses. And people might tell you, oh, you know what? I have worked on a previous project on UI. I consider myself as a UI expert. However, here I'm working on the back end. So probably give him an opportunity. When you are talking about UI, when you know that this person has some strengths, why don't you involve him? Take his feedback as well. So that could be an opportunity for relationship building, as well as making sure that there is someone within your team who has a strength and that could be utilized. So this is one example. where you could give people the authority, where you are telling person that I trust you. I think you would be the right person. You'd be like a subject matter expert.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one way.
Mm-hmm.
Next way I would say is try to understand what is the blocker. Use the coaching mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if your team comes to you, okay, we are stuck, we are not able to move forward. So sit with your team rather than having this blame game. You're not their boss to have this kind of blame game or even looking at, why, that kind of pointing. No.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, we look at the coaching point. Okay, so what have you done so far? Where are we heading? Okay, if you tried the solution A, where did we fail? Did you try anything else?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need me to step in? Giving your team that kind of confidence is needed. So that is point number 2, I would say. Confidence and looking at from the coaching perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So these kind of smaller things. And next thing comes in is conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
So now, instead of having again a blame game, rather let's try to sort out conflicts in an amicable way. So you slowly start building that rapport where people understand that you have a leader's mindset. You are not looking at being their manager or a boss, but you are rather looking at leading them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So slowly things start falling into place in that way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And as project managers, we are going to be managing the leading projects who have cross-functional team members in it. So people who are coming in, and that's one thing that it's always going to happen, especially whether it's even if it's a small company or a big company, that's going to happen. But what are your thoughts on, how can project managers improve their ability to lead cross-functional teams or just individuals outside of their direct, team or direct reporting? How do you think they can do that or improve that? Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that is very important. And all of us are these days stuck in places, not just cross-functional collaboration, I think cross-region.
Mm-hmm.
So I think understanding what is the other team's focus or how are they going to be impacted or what kind of data do they have is very important. Certain times the other team might have gone through a product where they have faced a similar kind of challenges or situation. How did they overcome it? What kind of help they give? So I would say start with a small talk and try to bring in the strategic focus where you try to understand about their motivations, what kind of problems have they solved, what kind of projects do they work with. And as a project manager, if you could share in your experiences as well, that counts in. So try to have this kind of discussions often with your cross-functional teams. Understand how different teams' culture works. And for me, this has been very important because I work a lot with Japan teams. And when I started, right, what really mattered is that I understood a lot of cultural nuances. That was very important. When people say that, okay, let me get back to you, what does that mean? Are they going to get back to me? Are they stuck somewhere? So understanding that cultural differences really matter. And next thing is, people also like to, have that proper agenda. When you go into a meeting with them, set it into an agenda. Show to people that you are genuinely interested to talk to them. It shouldn't be like, I've set in an agenda just for ice breaking. No, rather go with a planned agenda. It is for icebreaker. It is to understand how we could collaborate. What kind of functionalities do you work on? What can we do? So have that motive that you're looking at a long-term relationship building. That is very important.
Yeah, that's very, very important. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. So I know we're talking about leading without authority, but what are some of those skills? What are some of those traits project managers should develop to lead effectively without authority? What are some of those? I know we have a lot of transferable skills, but what are your thoughts on that?
You would agree that communication is definitely important, right? And Anna, let's look at these days, you are having so many AI-based tools. Probably what happens is if you are looking at building credibility, what if I miss an important update from a stakeholder? Probably we could leverage on AI. Were there any decision-making points where I had to be involved? Did people tag me somewhere that I missed out? You could probably automate it and see where you need it. So that would be helpful. Next thing I would say is on critical thinking. What if? Or what happens if I go on this path versus that path? Or even What happens if I choose vendor A versus vendor B for my development? How am I going to be impacted? Where am I going to save costs? So critical thinking will be important. Third thing, you believe it or not, you should have the genuine intent of relationship building, Anna. I would separate this from even stakeholder management. Certain times, right, we try to be nice to our stakeholders because we see that, oh, this is their influence or this is the impact they're going to. I rather say I'm more of a people's person. So I would say it as have that intent of connecting to people and looking at strengthening the bond between the teams. That is very important. So we have spoken about communication, critical thinking. We're also talking about building this kind of bonds and having that emotional intelligence is very important. And both for project management or for leading without authority. These are all the very important skill sets that you need to have.
Yeah. That's actually great. And I was going to also add active listening because that's so important too.
That is so important. Listen to understand their problem. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
True.
I hear you. But communication is huge. And that's also part of listening because whatever you listen is going to be part of the communication you either send out or it's part of, and things like that. So thanks for sharing that. What's one valuable lesson you've learned about leading without authority in your career as a project manager, lead, as a product owner, as personal worked in QA? What are some of those lessons you've learned?
Can I tell you something? It is directly proportional to your personal brand. Trust me, you'll agree with me. I'm going to connect all these dots together now. See, you are talking about leading without authority. Personal branding is also something that people talk about you while you're not in the room, right? So let's look at that angle. When you have a problem and you have sent out a communication, we are facing this problem. I think when you are leading with authority, people have that confidence. She comes with this kind of expertise, right? Anna comes in with a communication expertise. She is a problem solver. So this is what people talk about you in the room. And it is a way that you have built your personal brand around it. That is what your values are, Anna. So it is very crucial for me when my stakeholders have this kind of trust that, yes, Janani is going to be there. She's going to solve this problem. She and her team are looking at it. It is a personal brand that I'm bringing in. The personal brand clearly says my name card having problem solver as my profession there. So I'd say it is very crucial for me and it has helped me find people who have been, what's the right word to it? People who have been my advocates. That's the right word. They have been speaking about me and you never know how words quickly spread across, right? Yeah, from one team to another team. You'll never know. That's the kind of impact you make over people.
Yes. No, you're right. And I love that you mentioned also about people's mentioning your name in rooms where you're not because of what you bring to the table for them. That's important. So what advice would you give to new project managers who are just struggling with leading teams without that formal authority? Because that's probably going to happen. And you're nervous, you're new, and above all, you're new to the project management space, but you finally landed your role. And what advice would you give them?
First and foremost, Anna, probably these are the people who are fresh graduates from universities or people who made a pivot into project management. So guys, I would say that you will be struggling at the beginning. That is okay. Okay. Your first step you are trying to do is understand what your project is all about. Understand the end-to-end goal of your project. What was the problem behind this project? Why are we trying to fix this? First, try to understand that. When you understand the what and whys, you will try to understand who the stakeholders behind it are. So take the simple steps. Have a plan of meeting at least one set of stakeholders each week. Spend in some time. It shouldn't be just like a conversation that we are doing for the sake of the project. Rather, spend in some time to genuinely understand where they are coming in from, how are they going to be impacted, and stay in touch, giving them regular communication updates. This is what we did. If possible, have a kind of bonding event with all your stakeholders. This might be the simplest steps that you take. You are looking at building your credibility and trust.
No, you're right.
So, Anne, next thing the new project managers will struggle with is, why would people believe my decision? So guys, go back to what I suggested in the beginning, data back. Learn to use any of the data analysis tool. Have a kind of delegate whom you can trust. Can you give me the kind of data? This is what I'm looking at. What does this mean? understand every little bit. So when you go into a meeting, you are able to present the facts and you're not bringing in emotions at this point. I think this is not going anywhere, right? So you will have to give them database decisions.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And speaking of tools, what are some of those tools or frameworks that you use to help guide you or your approach to leading without authority? Because you talked data, using tools. I'm new. What do I use? Or even if I've made that career pivot, what do I use?
Oh, well, I think that, again, you have so many of the tools. I hear about snowflakes, I hear about Tableau and things. Guys, the simplest thing is even Excel.
Yeah.
Look at trends, yeah, isn't it? You agree?
Mm-hmm.
Excel has a lot of inbuilt functionalities. Look at the kind of trends that we are looking at. And one tip is, what are the KPIs that matter a lot? Are there any KPIs that are going to change after this project? Now, going back to, with this project, instead of having 1,000 active users, we are looking at reaching 5,000 active users. So how do we know that we have hit from 5,000 to 5,000? How do we identify that? So you might not be a technical person, but do have a delegate whom you can trust on, who could give you this kind of data and see the trend analysis. You will have to learn that.
Yeah.
I would say take help from tools like Claude. Claude works very well. At least you could give a kind of project. Here is what I'm working on. Can you give me kind of predictive analysis? You should rely on tools.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you share that. And sometimes as new project managers, or even people who've made the pivot, we're like, okay, what can we use? But we sometimes even have, as you said, a delegate within the organization that we can work with, that we can reach out to. You can even go to the SharePoint site or maybe a data repository that they're using to save their documentation, and or Drive, whatever, Teams, and check what is it that they did or used to make specific decisions that I can bring to the table, and maybe we can have a discussion with the right people in the room to help us move forward, because that's where that shows your leadership, your initiative, you coming out of the way instead of just waiting or, not being proactive in some of these things, because sometimes we sit back and we are waiting and, they're waiting on you as well because you're the leader. So again, project management is not just about taking notes, setting meetings and stuff like that. As you can see, Janani is sharing a lot of information, how us as project managers will lead with our authority. And there's a lot of things that go into it. There's risk management, there's communication, there's collaboration, there's active listening. It's just there's using data-driven information to help you move forward. And things like that. So I had you talk about AI, but with the increasing adoption of things like Agile and, organizations being matrixed, how do you see the role of leading without authority evolving for us project managers?
Well, I think matrix-based environment is everywhere these days, and Agile. See, you will have to set a clear boundaries on what are we going to achieve. So that is very important. Be realistic. And one of the crucial points for having this authority is also about you delivering to your words, right, Anna? So let's look at an Agile environment where you have committed on sprint 1. You have set the boundaries, you know what you are going to deliver. So just look at, have we accepted? Are we setting it in a right way? Are we taking up the goals which is doable? So as you go through probably one sprint or second sprint, you'd be able to realize how your team is feeling. Am I accepting too much of scope that my team is not able to deliver? And what happens is slowly your team starts losing that focus or even the performance. So set the boundaries in a right way. And it is also crucial to you because people believe in the kind of decisions you make, and they would have this feeling like Janani is a go-getter or she keeps up to her words, especially when it comes to milestones. So I would say, observe the trends of how the delivery goes in an Agile environment and set boundaries that is achievable. Smaller steps that is achievable that could be showcased. That is very important. Own it.
Yeah. I love that. This has been an amazing discussion, Janani. I feel like we could go on and on and on talking about leading without authority, but it's an important topic because as project managers, you're going to be faced with that. And it's not, as we talked about, it's not where you're being bossy. It's leading without authority, but also making sure that the project that has been assigned to you is, it's going according to plan, and you're going to be working with people. You're going to be working with cross-functional teams. And So you just need to understand what your role is there so that it is a successful project. Any final thoughts, Janani?
Well, we have touched upon communication today, and I would like to say one thing here. See, everyone's communication style or social style is going to be very different. So this is one tip I'm going to give to all those project managers or even the aspiring project managers. When you work in a multi-stakeholder environment, try to understand what is the other team's working style or communication style. What kind of communication report they prefer. Try to adapt it accordingly. You could use AI to generate the same report as an executive report or into a detailed report. So guys, this is your time. Harness the tools that we have these days. You're not going to write the same report 5 times. Learn to adapt, probably have it as a template. Understand social styles and then deliver it. Communication is the key.
Communication is key. That's very, very important. So how can people get in touch with you?
Well, you could connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm also open to mentorships. I even speak to people as and when they need help. So I'm all out there.
Yeah. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, especially with as someone who has worked in different roles, but doing almost the same thing when it comes to leading without authority, because you've worked with people who are bringing in their knowledge, their expertise to support the project's success. But you have led, you've managed, you've organized, you've communicated, you've collaborated, you've managed risk, all these things as part of leading without authority. So I truly appreciate the time you took today with us, Janani. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for having me. This conversation, I think, was more like, unfiltered, candid, or even unscripted. We haven't been looking into any of the scripts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.